So in the last video, we talked a bit about the differences between databases and search engines. We talked about Communication and Mass Media Complete as the database that you should use in doing your communication studies research for this class, but also for most of your comm studies courses that require you to use academic research. And we also discussed the importance of keywords in finding sources that are going to work for your research paper or project. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about identifying relevant sources, which can be pretty difficult, how you can use folders to help you move quickly through your search results, and how you can use the sources themselves through cited references and time cited to generate a more productive bibliography for your research papers and projects. Then I also want to discuss a little bit how you might widen a search if you're having trouble finding sources by using other databases, Google Scholar and books, as well as interlibrary loan services. So to get started, let's talk a little bit about the importance of finding relevant sources for your paper and how you might use folders to help speed along this process. So we already kind of looked at these search results a little bit in the last video, but I would like to use the same set of results for this video as well. And one of the really important things to keep in mind is just because only 21 sources come up doesn't mean that all of these sources will be relevant to what your particular topic is. So if I'm interested in the ways in which gender influences the actual reports, what kinds of words people use or how they talk about the athletes or the sports, not all of these articles are going to address that specifically, even though all of them will be related to gender and sports media in some kind of fashion. You have to use a really discerning eye to ask, is this really going to focus on what I'm interested in? So if I look at the first one, as we already did, just based on the title, were women really underrepresented in media coverage of Summer Olympic Games? I can already clearly see that this is mostly about the amount of coverage that of gender. So it's not going to be exactly on what I am interested in looking at. Same thing, the second one is pretty easy to see, even though this is about gender and to some extent sports media. It also is not going to be dealing in any way with sort of reporting and how that happens. But the third one, looks like it potentially could be useful to me. So if I look where the gender differences really reside, the big five sports featured in NBC's 2012 London Primetime Olympic broadcast. If I hover here, I can read the abstract of this article. And if I look at more closely, I see that this study is going to analyze primetime coverage of the Olympics to determine differences in dialogue in the sports coverage based on the gender of the athlete. So this is the article that would be exactly focused. It seems like it would be really relevant to what I'm interested in looking at. So what I would do is simply hit this button to add it to my folder. And that just says, hey, I'm going to come back to this and take another look. So this kind of first examination is a quick look at the title, maybe look at the abstract, see if I think I might want to look at it further, stick it in my folder. Again, Fighting Words, a corpus analysis of gender representations in sports reportage, seems like it could be useful. I look at the abstract. It says that the article is going to look at sort of the aftermath of a fight that took place in the NBA and a fight that took place in the WNBA to compare how newspapers talked about that. Were there important differences based on gender? Again, looks like it will be useful. I'm going to add it to my folder. Next one, pretty obvious that it just seems to be about basic online coverage. I'm not really thinking about online necessarily. If I look at this more closely, it looks like it's primarily about the amount of coverage, which is not what I'm really interested in. So I move on. Tough girls in a rough game seems to look more specifically at how roller derby is being promoted and produced. Interesting for sure, but not really about what I'm interested in. Go on. This one, sports television reporters and the negotiation of fragmented professional identities. Important here is that this is going to be about reporters, and I'm more interested in sort of the reports themselves, so that's not going to really work. But this article in particular, it sort of, on the surface, doesn't seem like it would fit form or function an examination of ESPN Magazine's body issue. But if I look at the abstract, I realize that it's going to talk about how this particular issue, the framing of the photographs, how they are sort of done, differs based on gender. And so even though this isn't about reporting in particular, it's more about photographs, there might be really useful information. It might be worth taking a closer look at. So I add it to my folder. Gendered practices in sports media, this one could potentially be useful. In this article, it suggests that they look at a week of media reality, analyzed from the point of view of gendering practices. I still don't know exactly what that means, but it's worth taking a closer look at. So when I add things to my folder, the nice thing is that I can kind of work through things quickly. I can decide if I want to take a closer look, and then I can come back to my folder, which will just have all of the articles in it that I have marked. One important thing to keep in mind with the folder is that once you sign out of the library site, it won't keep a record of your folder. So you need to either print it or email the results to yourself, or they'll be lost, or save them as a file. But this is kind of a nice tool to allow you to kind of move through a lot of sources quite quickly and to decide carefully, is this relevant, is this not? Once you find a source or a couple sources that seem like they're really relevant to your topic area, another really useful tool is cited references and times cited in the database. So once I have an article that I think will really work, another thing I can do is look up, well, what were the sources that this paper used to do its analysis? If I click on cited references, it will take me to a list of the references used in the paper itself, so I can see, what articles is this article citing, and I can find if any of those will be relevant for my topic area as well. This one's a little older, so the cited references aren't coming up as owned by our library, but sometimes when you go to the cited references, you'll see, also not in this one, it will highlight not just the references that exist, but sometimes you'll be able to access those references directly from the records page. In addition to showing you the references that a paper cited, you can also get times cited in this database. This will bring you to all the papers within this database that have cited this particular paper. So if I click on those, I'm able to see all of the articles that cited this article, and those too may end up being really useful to my topic area. So in thinking about using references, and the cited references and the times cited, you can really expand your list of sources in terms of those that are the most relevant to your topic area. Now I want to talk briefly about how you can widen your search if you've been having difficulty finding relevant sources. So let's imagine for a moment that we put in a number of different keywords into our search and we're not coming up with anything. We can't find any really relevant material on, gender and, sports media coverage. So where else can we go to look? One of the first places you can go to is other databases within the library. So we have, just as we have databases that are focused on communication research, you can expand by looking at more general interest ones like Academic OneFile and Academic Search Premier. But you can also choose to use databases that are specific to a related subject area. So in this case, potentially athletic training. I don't know, but it could be useful. Certainly, women's and gender studies might have databases that would help me find resources focused on gender and sports coverage. So, thinking about what subjects relate to the topic you're interested in and using those databases too to help you find sources is a great way to expand your search. Another way to expand your search is through the use of Google Scholar. So while Google itself is a search engine and will look through everything that exists on the internet, Google Scholar is actually a database that is something similar to the library's databases. It will look in particular at scholarly resources. Unlike the library, it's not a small group of 8,000 journals that it will search. It will search all the scholarly journals it has access to. So it's a much larger search, but it's still one that is particular to scholarly sources that you might use. So if I put in gender and sports media here, same as I did in my database search, you'll see, not like the first Google search I did where I got over 100 million hits. This one gives me only 6,000. 6,000 is still a lot, so it can be a really great tool to use if I need to find more sources than I'm able to find in the library. One problem with using Google Scholar is an issue of access. So sometimes things will come up. On occasion, I'll be able to have a link straight to the article that comes up, but sometimes I won't have a link. And then I have to figure out, well, how can I access it? If I click on it, it might take me to a page that asks me to pay for the article. Don't do it. Don't pay for an article. Instead, you can use several of the library's resources to find that article for free. So here it takes me to the Journal of Communication. It lets me read the abstract, but if I want the full PDF, I don't see the button. Oh, right here. It's going to ask me to pay for it. So instead of paying for it, what I would like to do instead would be, actually, this one's going to let me have the full PDF, I guess. Well, so that could happen, especially if you're actually working through the library. It might already connect to recognizing that the library owns a subscription. But if it doesn't, what I can do is to use the citation and search in our library. If I go back to the library website and I go to Journals, Newspapers, A to Z, I can search for the title of the journal, the issue in the volume, to see if our library does in fact own it, and I can get access to the article there. If our library doesn't own it, don't give up. There's still another way that you can access the article, and this is through the interlibrary loan system. So if I go here to Services, I can see ILL DDS. This is interlibrary loan. And what interlibrary loan allows me to do is to log in and put in the citation information, the journal title, the issue, the volume, the page numbers, the author. And the library will find a copy of the article and email it to me. So even if you do not have access to an article through direct link on Google Scholar or because our library owns the journal, you can still access it through interlibrary loan.